So we start with a gift. I don't know if you've seen these in the shops, but I think if you take nothing else away from this, it will give you a splendid idea for a relative as a present. So I got this for my mum at Christmas. And if you haven't seen these, here's how they work. It's largely a license to print money. It's a mainly blank book that they charge you about £15 for, and it has a variety of prompt questions in for the person who you gift it to fill in. But I was seduced into buying this. I was a bit short of ideas. But look, it's a beautiful and thoughtful gift for any mother. Who wouldn't want to receive this? And it is probably, and this swung it for me, probably one of the most valuable gifts you will ever buy. Who wouldn't want this? Blank, you have to fill it in. And it's great for an English teacher because I get to set my mum homework. And I thought as well, she'd write lots of lovely things, mainly about me, and that would also be brilliant. But you should always be careful what you wish, because I don't remember much about being young. There I am. Thank you. I've put on a bit of weight since then, obviously. But my mum wrote things like this. What did I look like when I was born? And I'll decipher her handwriting for you. I thought you were ugly, but everyone else thought you were beautiful. After seeing a few more new babies, I realised everyone else was right. Yeah. But then, in amongst that, I thought you were ugly, you get other little gems. What was I like as a child? One word, clever. And a little story. After your first day at school, you came home disappointed because you couldn't read. And to give you some context to that, apparently everyone on the street would say, "Oh, it's your first day at school, is it, Ian? Oh, yeah, it's very exciting. You'll learn how to read." And after a day, I hadn't learned how to read, and I came home in tears and was very disillusioned with the whole education system. Now, I don't know how many of you were alive in the 1970s, but this is how I learnt to read, with books like Look at This, Roger Red Hat. Spoiler alert, it's about a boy called Roger who has a red hat. That's about it. Rufus Round and Round, which is about a dog called Rufus who runs round and round. And these were the things that taught me how to read. So is it any wonder I became very disillusioned very quickly with reading and was seduced by the study of mathematics instead? Because maths is easy. You know, maths is just, well, here's a number and here's a number, and you stick them together and you do things with them, and there's the answer. But reading is very difficult. You've got to see how sounds transfer to letters and how letters form words and how we string words into sentences and sentences into paragraphs and into whole very complicated structures of meaning. But maths is a doddle. And if it wasn't for something else, I would probably have been standing here talking about maths or being a maths teacher, and I can't imagine many things worse than that. So to the rescue comes this. This is my earliest memory that I can put a date on. It's not my earliest memory, but it's the earliest one that I can pin down. And this is the 24th of September 1977. I'm sure you all know this. That is the date of transmission of Doctor Who, The Horror of Fang Rock, episode 4. And again, I'm sure I don't need to explain the plot of that to you, but I will just in case there are any people in the room who are ignorant. In that story, a shape-shifting alien comes to Earth, it takes over a lighthouse, and it horribly kills everybody in that lighthouse by electrocution or chucking them off the top of the lighthouse. Everybody in the story dies horribly, except for our two heroes. I have no idea what my parents were doing, allowing me to watch that, as I had just turned 4, and it almost certainly traumatized me, which perhaps explains a lot. But on that day, it's very important, on that day I fell in love for the first time. And I don't mean, oh, I quite liked something. I mean, I fell in love with that silly program about people whizzing around through time and space in a silly box. And as a result of that, I wasn't interested in reading Rufus Round and Round anymore. But I became interested in the works of these writers, and you've probably never heard of them, but they deserve to be celebrated. People like Jerry Davis, David Whittaker, Malcolm Hulke, Brian Hales, Bill Strutton, because they wrote these books. And once I discovered that the thing I was in love with had books written about it, that was it. Maths was back in the bin where it belonged for the simpletons to become interested in. But this was what I wanted. And this became my overriding passion. And I'm going to add a person to that list. This is Terence Dix, who died a few years ago. Terence Dix is absolutely, maybe he would apologise to you. Terence Dix is the reason that I am standing on this stage, because without Terence Dix, I don't think I would have become interested in literature at all. He took words and did incredible things with them. And to a large extent, he didn't teach me to read, but he encouraged me to move beyond what I was reading to become a much more sophisticated reader, because he didn't patronise younger readers at all. So he wrote all of well, not quite all of these, but a lot of them. And that became my life for a long time. My mum always says that she was quite worried about me when I was younger, that it wasn't, that's all I was reading. That is all I was doing. There was nothing else. It was just reading those books. And I became a voracious reader on the back of that. And as a result of that, went to study English literature at A-level and then on to university. And I always, you know that I'm very evangelical about my reading, and I don't understand people who stop reading at the age of 13 or 14, because that was completely alien to me. And I am reminded of the words of Mark Twain, who said, "A person who won't read has no advantage over one who can't read." And you might think, oh, it's just him and his weird madness. But it's not just me. We are everywhere, Doctor Who fans. So if you don't recognise him, this is Mark Gatiss. And me, I've put on some weight since that picture as well. But he talks about how he's an actor, a writer, a national treasure. And he, in an interview with The Guardian recently, said, "Doctor Who is my first love. It's my last, my everything. I owe it so much because in so many ways it's got me interested in acting and writing. And I owe it so much as well because it got me interested in reading and put me where I am today, being able to talk to you about that interest." And so much, I think, of the way I live my life and my philosophy comes from that silly TV programme. This is a quote taken not by Terence Dix, sadly, but Chris Boucher, another writer, who says, "You know, the very powerful and the very stupid have one thing in common. They don't alter their views to fit the facts. They alter the facts to fit the views," which can be uncomfortable if you happen to be one of the facts that needs altering. You may not know this, but I'm very anti-authority. I like to subvert rules and regulations whenever possible and stay the right side of the law. And that is because I love a programme which celebrates breaking rules and so on. But at the same time, my general philosophy in life is never be cruel, never be cowardly, never give up and never give in. And that does come from Doctor Who, and that's Terence Dix as well. And of course, as a hero, the Doctor doesn't run around carrying a gun. He's interested in books, the greatest arsenal you could have, the best weapons in the world. And it wasn't just Doctor Who, you'll be pleased to know, that fascinated me. But some people say that whatever gets its hooks into you when you're about 8 never lets go if you're a certain sort of person. And all of those things, and you probably don't know what they are, but I'll explain. All of those things got their hooks into me when I was about 8. So the Avengers, shot at the school gates, trivia fans. Not the Marvel ones, but the good ones. People who went around dealing with crime. Blake 7, very similar to Doctor Who. Lots of anti-authority stuff in that. Wurzel Gummidge, about a scarecrow that comes to life, with the beautiful Charlotte Coleman there, who was my first ever girlfriend. Or I like to think so anyway. I don't think she had much of a say in it. And The Prisoner, which again is very much anti-authority, do your own thing, be your own person. So quite a lot of my philosophy in life I just stole from various TV programs that I was exposed to when I was young. But sadly, there does come a time in everyone's life, doesn't there, where somebody comes and whispers quotes from the Bible in your ear. Corinthians, when I was a child, I spake as a child, I understood as a child, I thought as a child, but when I became a man, I put away childish things. And when I was about 13 or 14, I desperately wanted to be grown up, or thought of as grown up at any rate. And for a while I was. There were a lot of times when my friends would say, "Oh, what are we going to do on Friday night?" And I think we should get some torches and we'll go up on the moors and we'll have a big bonfire and a barbecue and we'll camp out. And my friends' parents would say, "Oh, I don't think that's a very good idea." And they'd say, "Oh, but Ian's going." And they'd say, "Oh yeah, he's the grown-up one, isn't he? He's the responsible one." And off we would go to the moors and get up to all sorts of terrible mischief, because that's how easily adults were hoodwinked by my very thin veneer of respectability and grown-upness. Because I think I don't believe in that putting away childish things at all, as those of you who've ever been taught by me will know. By this time, I think I'm about to go to university when these pictures are taken, having just walked the Pennine Way. And I'd already decided by then that I'd had enough of pretending to be grown up and that instead I should embrace my inner 8-year-old. And so Peter Pan, the boy who never grew up, became a sort of hero of mine because he gets up to all sorts of mischief and he's never found out and gets away with it. And sadly, this has become a sort of a modern day, in inverted commas, problem. I had a look for this. There are lots of people who will tell you that not growing up, it's got its own syndrome, Peter Pan syndrome, or sometimes called being a manolescent, is a terrible thing. Look, you suffer from it, and there are 7 signs that you suffer from it. Or there's 8 reasons why some people refuse to grow into mature adults. But I think the bottom one is the most truth, if you like, and I think I embraced that when I was not much older than some of you in this room, that you don't have to grow up to become a grown-up. I sadly have paid tax and national insurance and a mortgage for more than 1/4 of a century, and it's not very much fun. But inside here still, the things that give me the most joy are those things that I fell in love with when I was 8. And I'm going to end almost with that picture for those of you who don't know, that's the Monty Python team, who taught me, if they taught me anything, that the thing you should do most in life is be very serious about the thing that you do, but very, very silly in the way that you go about it. And in my end is my beginning, I thought we might finish, because it will please her, with words of wisdom from my mum. So what do you learn after 8 decades on the planet? Given your experience, what advice would you like to offer? Enjoy the present day. You never know what's round the corner. Thank you.